the men say, I have no idea why she filed for a divorce. I thought everything was okay. If your wife is coming to you saying, I'm really struggling right now, and your response is,
That's not true. Like, what are you talking about? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
it's interesting because in these spaces, we acknowledge that men and women are different, but we expect our spouse to act and behave according to what you believe to be correct and true and right. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rebecca. Today, I'm going to continue my conversation about marriage. Specifically today, I'm going to be talking about how to fight fair in marriage. I've talked a lot on this channel about sex in marriage, chores, and how all of these things can possibly lead to divorce. But the underlying condition, the underlying subject, and what we need to get down to is communication and how you can effectively communicate with your husband, with your wife, in order to get your needs met, to get your desires met, to actually thrive in your marriage and not end up as roommates like many people live in. And I get this criticism often. Rebecca, how can you talk about these subjects? You've been married for a very short period of time. You don't know what it looks like or what it feels like to be married 20, 30 plus years. You're right. I don't have that experience. However, I talk to women that have been married for 20, 30 plus years and that are thriving and that are living their best life in marriage. And they are the ones that I look up to. They are the ones that I get my resources from, and I take notes because I want to know how to be married for the rest of my life. I want to know what it takes and what I have to do as a wife in order to be the best wife I can be to my husband. And that is why I make these videos. I take the knowledge that I hear from other people and from very successful marriages, and I apply them to my life and I share them with you guys. Before we jump into these practical tips, and if you guys want to skip to that timestamp, I will put it right here. I want to share with you a video that was actually very profound for me that I found on TikTok, if you can believe it. And it's from the perspective of a wife sharing why she filed for divorce. And I want you guys to listen to this and pay attention to what is being said.
In 2013, I filed for divorce. If you would have asked my husband at the time why I filed for divorce, he would say, I have no clue. Our lives haven't changed. Everything's the same. I was content. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what's happening right now. If you asked me in 2013 why we were getting divorced, you would have gotten a list of about 1,300 things, literally pages. We went to the marriage counselor. That's how it went. He had nothing on his paper, and I had a whole notebook. Unfortunately, this is not uncommon, and there is a reason for it. It all comes down to, again, a lack of communication and a lack of education on our part. We do not know how to communicate. Men and women do not know how to effectively talk to each other because we're never taught that. We're not taught in high school, we're not taught in college, we're not taught in most relationships. We often don't even see it at home with our own parents because adult conversation is usually held in the bedroom or behind closed doors or privately away from children. So it's not even like you see that growing up. So what happens? We get in similar situations like me and my ex did. I went through life growing resentment for him, for all the little things that he did that he didn't notice. He didn't notice that I wasn't getting attention. He didn't notice that I was frustrated with him all the time. He didn't notice that I was angry, that I was asking him to do stuff and he wasn't listening. He heard nagging all the time because I wasn't communicating with him effectively. I wasn't sitting down with him and saying, listen, I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. I need help. I can't do all of this all of the time, because if I do it all by myself, raise these kids by myself like I continue to do, what's going to happen is I'm going to physically and emotionally check out of this relationship. That is what I should have said. Instead, what he heard was, seriously, get your shit together and help me do shit. Complaining, whining, nagging, bitching. Because I didn't know how to communicate. And he got used to that. He got used to me nagging and bitching all the time and just learned to ignore it. Meanwhile, I was just growing more and more resentful and angry and frustrated to the point where basically it was an episode of Snapped where I just walked out the door and didn't come back. Scooped up the kids and said, I'm done. And this is so common. Us women, we have to learn how to effectively try to communicate. We can't just bitch and nag. We have to sit down and be real with our spouse and say, this is how I feel. This is what's going on. I am hurting and I need help before we check out. We have to give it a real chance. And men, you need to be open to that line of communication. When your woman sits down and says, I feel overwhelmed, I feel like you're not giving me help around the house, you can't just say, well, that's not true. I help. No, you have to validate her feelings here, because everybody's feelings are true. You can never tell somebody their feelings are false or wrong or misguided, because your feelings are your feelings. You have to validate those feelings. You have to look at it from that other person's perspective and say, okay, I understand why you feel that way. How can we fix it?
I wanted to play this specific video because I hear this so frequently with couples. The men say, I have no idea why she filed for a divorce. I thought everything was okay. I didn't understand why she had a list of 1,300 items of things that she was resentful of. Couples don't know how to effectively communicate with one another. On the man's side, all he hears is nagging, complaining from his woman, and from her side, all she's hearing is, I don't care. I'm not, like, he doesn't want to help. This is just the reality. It's not that one is right and one is wrong, is that both need to work together, because the goal is not to fight each other. The goal is to work together and ask for help when you need it. Guys are a team. And once you start looking at your spouse as the opponent, your marriage is going down the tubes. So the first point that I want to make, and the first tip to fighting fair, is never use absolute terms. Never and always. You never pick up your clothes. You never take out the trash. You never pick up the kids. Or you always drop the ball. You always act like this. You always fill in the blank. We love to throw out these absolute terms like never and always. But it's not true, because you know that your spouse has done it in the past or does it in the present right now. But when you throw these little shots, all it's doing is building the resentment on the other side. The second tip I have for you guys is stop calling each other names. Stop using profanity when you are having a disagreement or an argument. As soon as someone starts using ad hominem attacks on you, you just completely turn off your ears. It happens in the workplace. It happens with your group of friends. Why is it different with your spouse? We need to start having a level of empathy for our spouse. It's really easy to take it out on the people we love the most. If you get to the point where you think you're going to start cursing, or you think you're going to start calling your spouse different names and yelling at them, take a step back and calmly say, hey, I've had a tough day at work, or hey, I've had a tough day with the kids, or this conversation isn't going anywhere right now, and I feel like I'm going to say something that I'm going to regret. So it is probably best that we table this for another time. We can have this conversation tomorrow when we're both level-headed and we both have thought about it and we both have slept on it. I hate the advice, don't go to sleep angry, because sometimes you do need to sleep on it. I cannot tell you how difficult that is, but if you can start implementing some of that discipline, I guarantee you guys will be saving so many arguments, so many screaming matches. That's the third tip, right? Stop screaming at each other and start talking to one another. When we can bring it down to this level, when we can have calm, cool, collected conversations with our spouse, that will allow them to tune their ears in much better, and we'll actually start communicating what we want, need, and desire to our spouse. The fourth tip that I have for you, and this is something that wives frequently do, is pulling out the filing cabinet, okay? This means getting historical. You've probably been in this scenario where your guys are yelling at each other. You pulled it out of the filing cabinet. You pulled out that file and you said, I'm going to bring up this one thing that you didn't do a year ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago. If you made that conscious decision to get over it, stop bringing it up, because it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. Imagine being in your husband's shoes. If something that you did was brought up every time you had an argument, that wouldn't feel too good. That would be very annoying to deal with every time you guys had an argument or a disagreement or a conversation. We need to start looking at these arguments and conversations through the lens of our partner, through our spouse. That's how you effectively communicate. The last and fifth tip, I think this is the fifth tip I have for you guys, never ever throw the word divorce out when you guys are having these arguments, because eventually that's exactly where your marriage is going. You're planting the seed in the mind of your spouse. Instead of planting the seed of negativity in our marriage and of threats of divorce, let's start planting encouragement and positivity. I know it's difficult when you guys are having arguments. However, threatening divorce every single time will only lead to that. And if you don't mean it, don't say it. We need to learn how to effectively tame our tongue. And if we want to see our marriages thrive, we need to learn how to ask for help. We need to learn how to say how we feel. And for men, I need you to understand this. If your woman is trying to effectively communicate with you and you are shutting her out, that's going to build resentment. Because if your wife is coming to you saying, hey babe, I need your help, I'm overwhelmed, I'm really struggling right now, and your response is,
That's not true. Like, what are you talking about? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
all she's hearing is, I don't care about your feelings, this means nothing to me. How do you expect your wife to be happy-go-lucky, want to have sex with you if that is how you're responding? Doing these little things is filling her emotional cup, is filling those emotional needs that she needs in order to pour into you as well, in order for that physical touch to occur. It's interesting because in these spaces, we acknowledge that men and women are different, but we expect our spouse to act and behave according to what you believe to be correct and true and right. When we know that men and women communicate differently, listen differently, act differently, have different emotional tolerances. So we need to work together, especially in marriage, because the bigger purpose is not about you guys. It's about your children, about your legacy. That is my video. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys like this style of video? Let me know how you effectively communicate with your spouse, how long some of you have been married. I love to see some of these comments, and make sure if you guys haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel, okay? Get me to 100,000 subscribers. I would love to have you here, a part of my community, and hopefully we will have better, long-lasting marriages and shared notes with one another, because I just want to see you guys win. So with that, guys, I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.